Good morning, my name is Victor Ortiz, and the research question we were all presented with was, how are the limitations of students' rights in illustration of the First Amendment in public schools? And my answer to this was that First Amendment in schools is limited to protect students from possible sensitive and offensive topics. But in order to understand what the question means and what my answer is, it's important to understand what the First Amendment is, when is the correct place to use it, and the limitations of said amendment. So, what is the First Amendment? Well, the First Amendment basically guarantees our right to religion, petition, assembly, and expression. It guarantees freedom of expression by prohibiting Congress by making any law that restricts the press or the rights of an individual to speak. And here in my picture I have the first 10 amendments, also known as the Bill of Rights, and ironically the First Amendment is the First Amendment, and you can say it's there because it's the most important, because if it wasn't for the First Amendment we wouldn't be able to say certain things in public or certain things in school and have the many rules that we have today. So there's two important points that we have to realize. That it is important to realize what too many limitations can lead to. Already in school we have limitations such as dress code, words we can say, and the topics that we learn, which leads me to my second big point, is that schools can find certain things educationally unsuitable. So if a school finds that a certain point in history and time or a certain event that happened within the year is offensive to teach or talk about, they can find it educationally unsuitable and not teach it or ignore that point in said history. Anyways, moving on to one of the most earliest court cases of the First Amendment in schools is Tinker versus Des Moines. The gist of it is that students decided to wear armbands in protest of the Vietnam War. The school found out about this and said that if anyone wears the black armband the next day, they would be suspended. And students did it anyways, and they got suspended. I think around three students got suspended. And as I said, it was one of the first cases of the First Amendment rights problems in schools. And the final decision was that students' constitutional rights don't diminish when they pass school gates, meaning that our freedom of expression doesn't go away as soon as we pass the doors to enter the school. So I'm gonna move on to one of my biggest points is that the First Amendment limitations. So as I stated in my last one, there are certain times, and places in the way you can say things, especially in school. So the stimulus source that Mr. Beard gave us, time, place, and manner, time, place, and manner matter when exercising First Amendment rights. You can't say anything you want, whatever you want, whenever you want. You have to find the right place to say it. And you can't insinuate violence on a group of people or a person, and not anything is appropriate to say in public. So the students here, when they wore the black armbands, they didn't offend anyone, they didn't bother anyone, or bother the population, which is important because that's exactly what they're exactly within the limitations. And here in my second picture we have a KKK rally who have as much right as they to express their ideologies and what they believe in and the KKK belief as much as we do to say about what we feel about the president, what we feel about a certain person, or what we feel about a certain event in time. Here is a way of not to express your First Amendment rights. You can't insinuate violence on people. So this is from the protests in Charlottesville when the KKK and people protested and then they started to fight each other, which is out of the limitations of the First Amendment. That's something you cannot do and something you can get charged for. But going back to my previous claim is that students don't need protection. And a survey made by Amazon Oz asked students a series of questions about the First Amendment. And when asked a series of questions, they realized the people that took the survey, that students find that protecting the First Amendment is more important than protecting someone's feelings. As we can see here, 91% of those students said that it's okay to express an unpopular opinion. 45% says it's okay to say something in public even if it's offensive to others. 43% that say that it's okay to say something on social media even if it's seen as offensive to others. 36% says it's okay to say whatever you want in public, even if it's seen as bullying others, and 30% say it's okay to say whatever you want on social media, even if it's seen as bullying others. And this is important because it just goes to show that students really do care about their First Amendment rights, and that it's important to them to not have them limited more than they already have in the real world. And finally, history is important. This goes back to my educationally unsuitable slide, where if you limit a student's education about the real world, you limit their experience and thinking of what the real world is. George Santayana says that those who don't know about the past are condemned to repeat it. So if we don't teach about 9/11, or if we don't teach about the Holocaust, then who's to say that it won't happen again later on in the future? It's okay to put certain limitations on what you say about certain topics, but it's not okay to limit someone's knowledge and right to say an important part of history. Which this overall solution is that the school can put certain limitations, but they can't put too many, or else we fail to not only educate students, but we fail to let students realize what their First Amendment right is. Thank you, and what are your questions?
Was there any information that you gathered that you didn't use, and then why didn't you use it, if so?
There is one source about a school program throughout the country that I didn't use, and the main reason why I didn't use that was because although I found it important, I read through it and I didn't find anything that I could have used towards my PowerPoint. And here I had, as you can see, a certain line of reasoning going back to my educationally unsuitable and too many limitations are important, and I didn't find anything important in that source, so I just didn't find it useful for this.
What might be the real-world implication of your findings today?
Some of the real-world implications is that we can allow students our age to realize what their rights are, and how they are able to use it to not abuse it later on in their life. Therefore, they don't get in trouble with the law, and they don't get in trouble with other people in the scene as almost an outsider.
All right, cool. You're done.